Okay. So Indu Das is from Quality Launch in Mexico, and he's going to talk on disaggregation of financial services. By the way, Indu, there were questions on fintech already. I saw a few questions on fintech already, although it was not, nothing was being talked about fintech. So it's good that you are giving this talk. So I'll give a brief intro to Indu. So Indu, if you can give me a minute.
No problem.
Sorry about the delay. So Indu Das is a serial entrepreneur and a senior management executive with 20 plus years of global experience in financial services, telecom, and technology sectors. More recently, he drove social and financial inclusion initiatives on a large scale by building several digital ecosystems and the fintech businesses that enabled welfare and disaster relief programs, serving the underprivileged. So Indu, it's a privilege to have you talk. So I invite you to go ahead and give your talk.
Sure. Let me just share the screen. Again, let me... So since Gopi took all the rapid firing round, I was just hoping that I wouldn't have many questions coming directed to me. But we do have some fintech. I just got highlighted. Kaushik just highlighted some questions on fintech to me as well. Look, I spent a fair amount of time in banking. I'm a commercial banker turned investment banker turned fintech, and then a fan of fog and edge computing because of my interaction with Kaushik. He taught me a lot of things. We try to do a lot of things in this aspect. A lot of new initiatives were launched. So I live in Mexico City. So I used to work for Citigroup, then I used to work for Temasek Holdings, for Fullerton, and then ended up becoming an entrepreneur, trying to build digital ecosystems for the government, more with the government of Mexico, and ended up doing a lot of transformation of financial systems, government benefit programs, disaster relief, and then into financial inclusion through lending, savings, acquiring, and remittances. Rural telecom is where, you know, the whole fog computing through smart routers and you know, computational capabilities on the edge came into the picture. Smart city and integrated edge computing solutions and managing state infrastructure. So I do have some smart city operations here with the government. So this is where I apply anything connected to what the entire topic of today. Just to give a quick brief on why fintech, I thought is a good, you know, probably a fill-in topic while the other gentleman was not available to talk, is because, you know, we talk about mobile phones and that's nothing but, you know, edge device. You do a lot of stuff today on your mobile. Pretty much everything is done on your mobile. If not, you're at a station. So fintech is a use of technology to deliver financial services in a better way, in a very, very simple way. You know, we keep it simple. It's nice. No one realized when, you know, Safaricom suddenly converted, you know, 20 million or 25 million customers overnight into carrying digital wallets, that this would become a huge trendsetter. M-Pesa would become a model. But if you look at it today, most of these people have kind of left that original model and focused a lot on developing, you know, deep tech solutions and fintech in financial world to largely cater to the urban society, Even though the speech is all about financial inclusion, there are, you know, a small number of fintechs operating in the world today who are actually focused on building capabilities for the rural, for the poor, and for the, you know, for the underprivileged. The rest, most of the people are focused on you know, urban users like, you know, all of us over here, the capable, educated, you know, and access to technology, access to information, financial services, and everything, because that's where the funding is available. I think, you know, investors have, they look for only opportunities where they would eventually be benefited, which is quite natural.
Go for a full projection, so if somebody making a comment cannot see the slide.
Sure. Is it okay now? Okay, so
yes, Indu, yes, go ahead.
So let me just move this. Okay, so net, a lot of money is flowing into artificial intelligence, open banking APIs, and then distributed ledgers, including blockchain as one of them. And these are the most emerging technologies today. About 30% of the large financial organizations are putting money into artificial intelligence. 75% of financial services firms intend to adopt blockchain as a part of their production system and processes by 2020. So I have some numbers from APAC. I'm going to share that with you in a bit. Technically, those whole fintech, this new trend is actually playing an outsized role in disaggregating the financial services value chain. Banks used to own a lot of things, and they still continue to own a lot of things. And fintech has come in, and then every single service is today provided by, one small fintech was providing a loan management system, another fintech providing something else. And hence, it's much easier to contract these little services that you get to build up your bank in a box without spending too much money. But I think that's going to take a while before the big banks, evolve into using microservices and, using third-party services, third-party fintech companies to provide services. Okay, so huge value invested in 2019, 137 billion, out of which 77 billion was in the Q3. 2020 numbers, there are multiple numbers, so I don't want to quote anything over here, but there's something between 25 and 35 billion dollars have gone into 2020 was a wash. Technically, most of the money has gone into consolidating or improving the existing fintechs, and at least for them to mature to the next level. Globally, there are about 67 fintech unicorns valued at about 244 billion. And 2015, there were 1,275 deals, and 2019 saw about 2,693 deals. 2020 numbers are really, really poor. I don't want to quote them. I could be wrong, but somewhere in the range of 200, I think in the range of 500s, I guess. So it's not many deals have actually come up, but there are multiple, data sources say different things, but there are somewhere between 12,000 fintechs to 20,000 fintechs, depending on who's saying it. But 12,000 itself I think is a phenomenal number today. That is disrupting something or the other. Some of them making a huge lead compared to many others. So technology is a core driver. Today the average citizen talks about transparency. They talk about customer centricity. Who's giving me better value? Me and my things, my security. What value do I get? How do I control my information? How do I control my money, my wallet? How do I do the transaction? So, at the end of the day, it's all technology that is talking. So this probably, we drove it. We told the people that, look, these are the options you have. And now everyone's asking for it. The only option is to keep improving on top of this. Fintech has now become a new subsector. I've already seen some list under the government, here and in a couple of other countries as well, where fintech has been now categorized as a subsector within financial services, which is, I think, a good thing. For computing, cloud, blockchain, AI, open banking, like I mentioned before, have transformed the landscape of the world in the last decade, creating digital leaders with faster growth, disrupting trends that, in established banks that we can probably see are three key things: artificial intelligence translating to better user experience, virtualization of network and use of fog computing, containerization of applications. I think these are the things, especially with the established banks and banks with network branches, multiple offices. And obviously customer interaction, customer service centers. These are the things that are very, very important trends, disrupting trends in the market. At least they're talking about it today. Fintech companies can leverage new technology to create new and better financial services for consumers, businesses, by using new software applications, processes, and business model. So a lot of high-paying jobs are being created in this. And who's not hiring in fintech? Pretty much all the banks are hiring. All the tech players are hiring. I believe between Google, Apple, Samsung, And maybe one more, about 56% of the payment market, mobile payment markets are going to be controlled by these guys. So, that itself is a huge change. I mean, from banks hiring at one point for financial services, now you've got the tech guys hiring people for financial services. Then you have retailers hiring for financial services as well. Huge branch network of retail operators like small stores, supermarkets, hiring somebody from the banking industry to run their financial services products distribution through these retail networks. So using technology, obviously, they don't want to be a traditional bank. If the average global bank employee generates about $400,000 in revenue, an average employee in a Chinese fintech, look, I don't want to name anything, but they generate over 16 million of revenue a year. And this is an important number because that's the productivity that a fintech engineer can bring into the market, compared to a traditional banker, which is where I came from originally. What are the trends that you see geographically? US and Canada enabling new fintech, because it's already established. You've got Square, you've got Stripe, got a number of followers, you've got enough of innovation out there. And so now they're looking at enabling new fintechs in the market. Mexico, Caribbean islands, Central and South America is looking at lending to small businesses and poor. Latin America has been behind all the time, and out of which Mexico has been really behind in terms of trends because of the banking laws, because of the regulatory restrictions. Middle East and Africa, they have something very interesting going on, offline payments. Kaushik and I, we evaluated launching something in Mexico. Unfortunately, the country, only 56% of the country is connected. So meaning the remaining part of the country is not connected. While the population numbers are smaller in those regions, there is a need for creating local networks for doing financial transactions. Kaushik, you want to just say a word on that?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Indu. Well, I just want to mention that whenever people talk about edge computing, and many other talks were about 5G, and previously it was 4G, right? People just focus on environments where you have connectivity, right? So there's connectivity, therefore you have a combination of fog and edge and cloud computing capabilities put in place. But there are locations around the world where there is no connectivity. Okay? Even with 4G, there are so many gaps around the world. With 5G, there will still be so many gaps because it will take time, first of all, for 5G to become ubiquitous. But not every location in the world will have 5G. And so there are three environments to consider. One is online environment where there is connectivity, but how do you efficiently use the connectivity? But there is the next environment, which is online and offline, because sometimes you have connectivity, sometimes you don't have connectivity. Okay, so how do you deal with that situation? Okay, and the third environment is areas where there is no connectivity. Okay, like remote locations, like Indu was talking about. I think in Mexico, only 50% or 56% of the country was connected. So the remaining 50% of the country was not connected. So there were situations where the government was spending or giving away money every month, cash disbursements to citizens, the underserved people, and it was all done in cash. And there's a lot of drawback, with cash transactions. It can get lost, people can get looted. And so we actually built a solution, a fog edge solution that would enable payments in locations where there's no connectivity. And that's something that is very unique. And then when there will be like a local wallet and, transaction happens. And then when you find connectivity, you synchronize. And you have to synchronize it in such a way that it's all accurate and there are no mistakes made. So that's the kind of use case we're talking about. So I mean, the bottom line is in fintech, we were able to find solutions for problems that were related to lack of connectivity. But there are a lot of other industries where I think this technology can be applied, and of course with 5G, things may get better. But I'm envisioning that there will still be locations where there will not be connectivity, and you have to deal with it. For example, the technology we just talked about that was applied for offline payments was also applied in situations where, like, you have a cruise ship, and the cruise ship is sailing, and inside the cruise ship there's no connectivity where people can interact with each other without connection, right? So our technology was enabling some use cases in that environment. So yeah, Indu, I think that's what I want to talk about, that there are environments that will remain offline, and we need to support those use cases.
See, it's a very important use case. In fact, there was a project that I was handling at the time where we had to do disaster relief disbursement nationwide, and I'm not shy to say that only 50% of the population could be reached. The other 50% of the population, there's no digital delivery of money. We had to physically find them. We had to physically deliver this. So, it was a complete, 50% disaster managing a disaster relief program. And the only way this could have been solved in a nice way is if we had something like an offline payment by using, for computing. So, which is what the genesis, that's the genesis of this use case. And of course, the government disbursement that happens across the rural areas in physical cash. I think that's a very, very important, valid thing as well. Some days the banks have to change. So, the banks will change someday. I mean, they have to move faster. 5 years ago, there was a prediction in APAC, in Asia Pacific, that 250 top banks would implement digital strategies. And we are far away from it. And they haven't. Hardly 20% of them really started doing something. The average age of the top 100 banks' core banking software is about 17 and a half years, meaning to say they're very slow. They're not good for current day's digital demand. It's impossible to use these. So, and they're not changing. They're not investing enough amount of money. 38% of the revenues are at risk because of this, startups, the fintechs, and loss of customers to better user experience. 22% of the banking customers have already started using the new channels. Okay, and there would be 100 new banking licenses and new banks appearing in the next couple of years in Asia Pacific. So imagine if all of this happens, if technically these new banks, digital banks, the challenger banks come on board. Right now, 22% of the banking customers are already banking with the new channels. This goes from 22 to by another 10, 15% more. What would be the state of affairs with the traditional banking thing if they don't catch up really, really fast? This is just APAC. I mean, there are other regions which are really struggling as well. Emerging and evolving fintech streams are insurance is a big thing. InsurTech, as they call it. I'm integrating one of the things into one of the projects over here. Capital markets, wealth management has already become big. It's there across important markets. Remittance, mortgage, real estate, payments, personal finance. Reg tech is the next. I think that again is making a lot of noise. Regulation tech, especially now, post-COVID world is going to see a lot of reg tech in focus. Crypto and blockchain is already making noise in the market. Lending has always been creating new. I mean, it's been evolving every single year. Most current unbundled implementations. So, what are these banks and big institutions doing today? Unbundled implementations in the sense like getting microservices or using modules would be online banking and security, mobile banking apps and security, automated savings, bots in terms of robots. Voice banking is another emerging trend. There are a couple of startups already. Text, fraud alerts, identity theft, financial protection services. These are the most individual module implementation that are happening in the market. Major banks and tech leaders constantly focusing on building and forging alliances in payments. These are the things that can happen. Some consolidation and moments for some market leaders to come up. Like I said, Google and all of these big guys are already capturing a large size of the market. And the rest of the 12,000 fintechs will have to, I don't know how many, maybe 40% of them are into payments, and they will have to fill the remaining 50%, I guess. If they don't move fast, then it's going to be, again, a controlled environment with a few players owning a large part of the digital banking market share of this world. Disaggregation, unbundled traditional financial services activities into individual core functions. Artificial intelligence, a general purpose technology, is reshaping the nature of both work and commerce. I mean, what do you want to buy? It's been pushed to you already based on your what you've been doing online. Open APIs, large providers are beginning to use open APIs to adopt payment as a platform. In IoT, there is NFC, MPOS, beacon sensors, POS machines, and ATM is slowly going away, because now it's all, you'll find more micro ATM services in emerging markets, less of cash in developed markets. So I think emerging trends are going to be more in NFC, MPOS, and sensors. And I just picked up this slide from CB Insights. It is pretty interesting. This is one screen from Amazon, and with all of these services inside. I mean, this is how the slide came. So I just pasted it over here to show you how fintech is all over the place on one single slide, one single screen of Amazon. You have the pay, you have Amazon Cash, you've got the services like Reload, the wallet, you have lending, you've got recharge, you've got pretty much all the services available on a single thing. And this is how the reality is. And I think a lot of people will follow this. A lot of entities are going to follow this trend, and slowly. World's most innovative fintech companies in 2019, the more diversified subsegments where there are high demands for skills are in payments, personal finance, and in lending. The others are small. These are startup great companies, good names, but they're still evolving to become important in that sector. I just put through this slide in because I believe there are upcoming entrepreneurs and people over here in this group. So largely, this is how a fintech skill combination should look like. You need to know a bit of software programming, or you need to have the skill sets within your organization: project management, cybersecurity, alliances, creating alliances, operations, data analytics, entrepreneurship, and banking and insurance as a core. Need to have creativity, critical systems thinking, adaptive learning, and work environment for entrepreneurs as usual. I mean, a lot of us are here already. High ambiguity. The pace is very fast, and it's kind of chaotic. So that's it from my side. Just thank you. If I think this fintech question was already answered during this talk, I guess.
So thank you, Indu, for giving a perspective on fintech. So there were a couple of general questions. An interesting question, probably Kaushik can take this question or you can answer. So there's an interesting question. Would you think Elon Musk's Starlink would be able to deliver 5G or faster internet to all remote locations across the world?
I think Kaushik is
yeah, I think that is definitely a great project from SpaceX. I think that is definitely a solution to have a more complete coverage. Because I just feel that on the Earth, with the 5G deployments that are being concentrated on areas that are more economically viable, for the operators. I think that Elon Musk is, providing a more comprehensive coverage across the globe with all the satellites. So I definitely think that that will be able to address the gaps we have. Uh, but the example I gave earlier about offline use cases, where today there are locations where there is no connectivity, and you would need to support those locations as well, right? But then with Starlink, you may have connectivity everywhere, but there may still be use cases where you may want to do fog computing or offline computing uh, in areas where there is connectivity as well. For example, in the fintech space, and one example would be like in particular country, in one of the emerging markets, people were afraid of using mobile payments because they were afraid that the handle, whether the phone number or email address will be passed on and given away, and they did not want to do that, and that was one of the reasons why they did not use mobile payments. But in those situations, I think using peer-to-peer networks and offline computing would address that problem, where the payments can happen anonymously offline. Although there is connectivity, people choose not to connect, but they want to just do offline connectivity with other devices, peer-to-peer, and perform the transaction. So yes, there will be probably better coverage with Starlink, but we should still continue to look at use cases where people want offline computing to happen without connecting to the network.
Okay, Kaushik, Indu, there's one more question. It looks interesting. How can distributed ledger technologies affect financial inclusion?
I think it's basically decentralizing and also it's an audit trail. It's much safer mechanism to use that. Today, I find trends happening in banking where blockchain distributed ledger systems are used for an audit system, creating an audit system, a safer mechanism to attack fraud. And I think there's a value. I mean, these are the values, that you have by using a distributed ledger. Plus, of course, in payment industry, you're sure about, no hacking and the sanity of the transaction, the security aspect of it. I think these are the things, good things about distributed ledger.
Okay, so I think, so Kaushik, you want to add something? I think we are pretty much done with the time as well. Yeah, yes, Indu, go ahead. Yeah.
There is one thing which, just going back to Kaushik's this thing, one of the key things that we found is that a lot of mobile applications fail when you don't have 4G and it goes to 3G, it switches to 3G. And if you're using a banking transaction application, then obviously banking application, your transactions fail. So you don't know if the money has gone through. You don't know what's happened to your transactions. It's like ATM machines in some buildings. If you don't have enough connectivity, your card is stuck inside. It doesn't come out because it's waiting for the internet to, so this happens all the time. And this needs to be solved. And I don't know if it's going to be Elon Musk or somebody's got to solve this problem for the rural people. As you move away from the city, you have this problem. And that's where a large number of people, people live. So someone's got to do something. That's my